And joining us live in studio, ANN7 resident political analyst Fiso Mahlangu. We have Wayne Thring, ACDP Deputy President. Good evening to you, gentlemen. Mr. Kebi Mapatswe, MKMVA Chairperson, and Paix Dekhetsi, National Chairperson of COPE, joining us on the line. I'll start in studio. Thanks so much, Mr. Thring, for your time. Now, give us an example, instances where ANC members voted as per their conscience or their secret ballot, including that under the President Thabo Mbeki's tenure.
Well, I think very clearly, firstly, the ACDP supports President Thabo Mbeki's call for the members of parliament, in particular those of the ruling party, the ANC, to vote according to their conscience, and to remember that they're actually there representing the people as per the Constitutional Court's injunction that was given, and not necessarily representing their political parties in certain instances. There have been precedents that have been set. Precedents that have been set where individuals were allowed to vote according to their conscience, even within the ruling party. And those particular precedents that were set were when members were allowed to vote according to their conscience with regards to the issue of abortion on demand and with regards to the civil unions or same-sex marriage bill that was being passed. So in those two particular instances, the ruling party allowed members of within its ranks to vote according to their conscience. So we, as the African Christian Democratic Party, say that a precedent has already been set, and there should be no reason why it cannot be condoned or allowed in this particular case.
It's feasible, but I mean, this is not according to the opposition-sponsored vote of no confidence, as in a precedence being set there. It's just the utilization of the secret ballot. But when it comes to a sitting president and expecting that his MPs will vote against him, the secret ballot is not an automatic or a given lever that the National Assembly can use.
Yeah. Well, this is very strange, particularly coming from a former president. The one thing I think we must not become is we must not become to ideological ideas that become very destructive. And we must also not behave like heathens when we think about politics, because why did President Mbeki not suggest this whilst he was still in office? He is basically saying he wants to oust President Zuma. That's basically what this entails. This is not an attempt of a vote of no confidence that Thabo Mbeki is, as the former president of the ANC, would meet the top six and have engagements with them. He's trying to mobilize a team in parliament to revolt or to vote against President Zuma. I don't know if this is him getting deflated or his hopes of a second term getting squashed by President Zuma when he ascended to the presidency. But all of these things did not come out when he was the president. He does not undergo January 8. This is for him not the year of Oliver Tambo, so he's not in the year of unity. And then he's appealing to people and saying, you should vote from the heart and keep South Africa in mind. When in his previous statements, he said the ANC must be united and people should not remove their eyes from the unity of the party. For a former president, he's now sowing division to say, hey, remember, the country, remember yourselves, vote for yourselves as an individual, meaning also appeal to those who might want positions after 2019 to say, vote for your futures. Don't just keep Zuma in that position and forget yourselves. Vote for another tenor of politics that you might be in. I think that is a very destructive method of wanting to oust President Zuma. Making such a letter public is an appeal to members of parliament from the former president to say, act, remove him and think of yourselves. If he wants to save the party and he wants to have engagements, the top six has continued to say, as a former president, he's got an open door policy to Luthuli House. Does he go? No. Does he go to the party functions? No. Is he even still a member of the ANC? I don't think South Africa is assured of that. But he'll continually write open letters and make public statements about another president, inciting things that he never allowed within his own administration. And of course, the opposition parties would leech onto this and catch it because it drives an agenda that they want. when we want fees to fall in this country. The SADP sitting next to me doesn't make those amendments. The issues of land and black people, Chapter 25 of the Constitution, they are not a voice. But when you say we want to oust the sitting president, all of a sudden we are all Democrats, and the SADP is the first hand that raises to say, we support the voice of the former president.
We'll give it his response there. Mr. Kebi Mapatswe, thanks so much, Chairperson of the MKMVA. Your response to the latest open letter from former President Thabo Mbeki.
Look, ma'am, our view as MKMVA is that we have been trying to behave in a very disciplined manner, and we have tried to refrain from attacking each other in the media. But we expected that leaders like Comrade Thabo Mbeki are the ones who would unite the African National Congress, are the ones who would be able to teach the new members of parliament on how to toe the party line. Because he was once the president of the ANC and the president of the Republic of South Africa. And he knows how, when there is a motion in parliament, all members of the African National Congress are expected to vote according to the party caucus. Now, for him to come out and say members of the ANC must vote with their conscience, it's really something that is new that we see it is happening in the ANC, that some people who used to lead in the ANC, now they are no more in leadership. They are beginning to criticize the ANC in public, whereas there is an open door policy that if you're not happy about what is happening in the ANC, come to the Tulu House and engage the leadership of the ANC. So we're not agreeing with the statement by the former president that members of parliament should vote according to their conscience. Members of the ANC who are in parliament, they will vote according to the party line.
Please stay on the line, Mr. Mapatswe. Mr. Thring, ACDP Deputy President, just your response that your crusades are also selective, if you will.
Certainly not. I think it's disingenuous to basically say that the ACDP's crusades and the ACDP's inputs have been fairly selective. The ACDP has been one of the most consistent political parties that South Africa currently has. If one looks at the policies of the ACDP, we have been true to our policies. We are the African Christian Democratic Party and have been one of the few political parties that have been as consistent in terms of our policies and in terms of our constitution besides any other political party. Now, let me also say, we are the not SACDP, we are the ACDP, the African Christian Democratic Party. But I also think I want to disagree with my colleague here. I think that Mr. Mbeki's comments have been extremely brave. Why has Mr. Mbeki made these particular comments? He's made these particular comments because of the crisis that the current president has placed our country in. Mr. Mbeki is actually saying we are prepared, and I am prepared, to put South Africa first. We are prepared to put South Africa before party. Now, the current president, Mr. Zuma, has indicated that the party comes before the country. We, as the African Christian Democratic Party, say it is wrong. It is certain that the country must come before the party.
I just want to go back in terms of your own party codes of conduct and your governance and your consistency, as you were saying, that why is it that MPs of the ANC it's seemingly being more criticized for those that do choose to toe the party line and to defend President Zuma in the very democracy that we celebrate and protect as a constitutionally, democratically elected president? Why is it that there is little tolerance for those that want to vote as their own prerogative along the party lines?
We are not preventing any member or saying through any member of the ANC that if that's what they feel that they need to do, we are not stopping them, and we certainly cannot stop them. However, we are saying that in this particular case, that the people of South Africa need to come first. A downgrading to junk status will place the poorest of the poor in jeopardy. We will see interest rates go up. We will see fuel prices increasing. We will see food prices increasing. We currently have a double deficit, a deficit on our current account. We have a deficit on our national budget. We have a debt to budget ratio of something like over 50%, coming from 28% in 2000 2006. And these are the crises currently facing South Africa. And the ACDP is certainly not going to be one of those political parties that are going to sit by the sidelines and watch our country go to junk status, and the poorest of the poor, the indigent, and those who have no access and no recourse to Parliament suffer as a result of the decisions taken by one man.
Yeah, but I mean, President Nelson Mandela, in the euphoria that we had in the new dispensation and what was subsequently coined as the Rainbow Nation, had been criticized himself, put in front of court. Thabo Mbeki himself wasn't spared any criticism. At some point, there was also a sense that he had been the personification of the problems within the ANC. 8 days in September by Reverend Frank Chikane saying, you know, that was not necessarily a good move from the ANC. How do you know that Zuma is really or removing Zuma will turn things around? And secondly, how do you know that he is the epitome of the problems that we have in this country if you base it on the marches we saw, less than 100,000 people out of 54 million? You know.
Yeah. Well, I think certainly the statistics in terms of the number of people that turned out on the marches are there basically up for grabs. I think it depends on who's been counting and depends on actually who's been doing the statistics. But certainly we believe that it's been more than 100,000 people that have turned up. You know, I speak to individuals at the petrol station, and a petrol attendant says to me, we are not happy with the president. I spoke to a lady who does cleaning in an office, and this lady who does cleaning in the office says, we are not happy with the president. I spoke to a lady in the Gautrain, a gentleman in the Gautrain, and so the general feel, if one just goes out into the general population and asks questions, you will see that
I suppose it depends on which sample you're using as a dipstick marketing.
This is a general sample. It's not. I'm talking about in a restaurant, in the Gautrain, at a petrol station. So you're not looking at just getting a few people together and coaching them. So the general feel, and this is, if you go out today, the general feel of South Africans is that we need a change in the presidency. Look at where the country currently is sitting. Look at the crises that the country is currently facing. Do we need a downgrade at this particular time? Look at what what happened when President Nelson Mandela came into power as the president of the country. We had a GDP from junk status. We had a GDP that increased. So from junk status under the apartheid regime, we increased economically. Under Thabo Mbeki, the same thing happened. With Kgalema Motlanthe, same thing. But when President Jacob Zuma has taken over with all of the challenges, and I'm not saying that there were no challenges with Nelson Mandela, that there were no challenge with Thabo Mbeki, but if one looks at the mistakes and if one looks at the reputational damage that has been done to South Africa, it is reputational damage that may take some years for us to recover from.
Well, a lot of things sound really rehearsed, Cindy, but the reality of the matter is, if my colleague is quoting a restaurant, maybe it's where you go and how much you have and you hear different opinions. I might speak to different people maybe because they don't go to the Gautrain because they are in the taxis, or others are not at restaurants. So I don't want to get into the figure of how many people marched. The figure is out there, as he says, for the taking. But the reality of this matter is this battle is against radical economic transformation. The battle is not against the man. The battle is actually against the black child. When President Mandela appointed Trevor Manuel, the rand did not perform. In fact, people called him a failure, and this was a wrong decision made by the former president. How could he take an engineer and make him a finance minister? The same people who now praise Trevor Manuel as the best finance minister South Africa ever had. So it's not a matter of the finances and the rand depreciating. The holistic economic battle that goes on in this country is because there is an approach to radical economic transformation to empower the life of a black child, to empower the black person in business, to empower the black person in the street, and people, the West, oppositions, gang together, because a black person, a black family should not be emancipated in this country. And President Zuma being the head, launching this program, if you hit him you will spill the beans on radical economic transformation.
Sis,
That's what the battle is about.
Sorry to interrupt you. Mr. Maphatso, just a response before Mr. Thring comes in. And I suppose it depends on who you ask, because ANC Youth League, Women's League, and the Zuma supporters in the party, and generally what we heard from the top six, and Gwede Mandasha saying they're firmly behind the party. It's the year of unity, O.R. Tambo, and adopting the characteristics of such leadership. What is your response to the ACDP, seeing that generally everybody is talking about Zuma must go?
Look, the issue about President Jacob Zuma does not start now. It's a thing that started long time ago in 1990, 91, and it's not an internal thing. It's an agenda that is pursued by foreign forces who never wanted President Jacob Zuma to lead the African National Congress, because they know that he's a person who's going to be very, very firm on implementing the radical economic transformation, in speaking the language of the poor, the language of the people that are unemployed, the language of saying land must come back to the people that it belongs to. So the agenda to remove President Jacob Zuma, it's an old agenda that is now has gained momentum. We now see it openly that it is now being funded heavily by foreign forces. We are not going to keep quiet as the MKMVA to allow that. People who are marching outside there, all of them, they are pursuing an agenda that is not South African, but it's an agenda that is outside. So President Jacob Zuma must keep on, be focused, implement the radical economic transformation. That's what the people of South Africa want. That's what the people who are working in at the garages, that's what people who are working as helpers, they want, that radical economic transformation. That's all what South Africans want.
Mr. Maphatso, thanks so much. Mr. Thring, saying that essentially this is not a universal call, and to allow the diverse views around the political landscape, and not to assume that we are all homogenous in our view as to what's going on politically.
Look, I certainly don't think that we are homogenous, but let me also just say that the comments just made now is that this is a call for those who are not South African. The call to remove President Zuma is basically saying that if you want to do that, you are not South African. I want to say that as members of the ACDP, we are proudly South African. We have no other country to go to. We have no other place to go to. South Africa is our home. But we do have a right, we do have a constitutional right to indicate that when we feel that the president of the country has made irrational decisions, that we need to bring correction to those particular decisions. And I think when
irrational,
one speaks about...
you mean by reshuffling of cabinet?
Yes, because when one speaks of radical economic transformation, what the radical economic, and we are not opposed to transformation. We are not opposed to seeing, and certainly as the ACDP, we want to see those who are in poverty. We want to see those who are marginalized, those who are malaligned, misaligned. We want to see those individuals reaping the benefits of the freedom of South Africa. The ACDP is not opposed to economic transformation. We want to see economic transformation.
Yeah,
but the radical
sorry,
economic transformation may turn out to be radical economic destruction, because if one
How
looks
so?
at
But
where
we've
the country
heard
goes.
Mr. Malusi Gigaba trying as best as he could to allay any fears from the rating agencies and business that this is not a policy move. We haven't seen anything. He's hardly even given, let alone a week, to orientate himself in the office, and there are already questions. We heard from the presidency saying him and Pravin had bad blood. They just couldn't work together. And that relationship was untenable. So if you and I continue to perpetuate to say it's irrational, we haven't even seen evidence thereof. Besides, the rating agencies, mind you, did not decide on the eve of the reshuffle to downgrade. There had already been talks from last November. Sure. So we know more than what we're actually willing to admit.
Well, look, I think that the ratings downgrade, certainly in December last year, there was a warning that if there is one of the challenges that South Africa faces is policy and political instability or political uncertainty. And if there's a continuance of political and policy uncertainty, then the possibility of a ratings downgrade increases. So there was a warning. Now, despite the fact that the warning was given, the President Jacob Zuma went against the warning. If one looks at what was the crime? What was the crime that Pravin Gordhan and Mr. Jonas actually committed? From the view of the African Christian Democratic Party, their crime was none other than that they were competent. Their crime was none other that they were incorruptible. Can any finger be pointed to Mr. Gordhan and Mr. Jonas in terms of them being corrupted and in terms of them being incompetent? No finger can be pointed at them. However, there were other colleagues of theirs who were found to be incompetent and who were found to have lied.
We're running out of time. We'll get to the point. I wanted my colleague,
cabinet.
Yes, I wanted my colleague to respond to that, but we're fresh out of time. We'll have to set aside time for this debate next time. Thank you so much, Mr. Thring, for your time. Wayne Thring is ACDP Deputy President, Sfiso Mahlangu, ANN7 political, resident political analyst, and we had on the line Mr. Kebi Mapatswe, MKMVA Chairperson. Thanks indeed at home for watching. Up next is Clive from Atibela Smith with BizPulse. Do stay with us.